Hi, my name is Risa Carlson. I'm the pre-concert lecturer for the Baltimore Classical Guitar Society. As you all know, in this concert season, the Baltimore Classical Guitar Society has been presenting local performers as a show of solidarity during the pandemic, which has been affecting all artists greatly. And to maximize this impact, each of the season's performances has featured a work by a Maryland composer. In tonight's program, we will start the second half with our very own Ron Pearl's guitar quartet titled Together Apart, commissioned by the Baltimore Classical Guitar Society with support from Musica Canis Avem, and performed by the Atlantic Guitar Quartet. But before we get there, in the first half of the program, we have the wonderful Thomas Viloteau, and he's here with me today. Thanks for joining me, Thomas.
Hi, Risa.
So I wonder if you could tell me a little bit about your program. I see that you're starting with a classic.
Yes, Prelude #1, Villalobos. It's so classic that I actually never played it in concert before recently, last month actually. It's one of those pieces you learn as a student, and then I mean, I don't know if it was just me as a student, but you grow as you know, the repertoire gets more difficult, and you kind of dismiss the stuff you played, you know, before. But that piece is just gorgeous, I think, and it's a prelude, so it really fits as an opening for a concert, you know. And they're usually played in as a group in those 5 preludes that are edited. But I think just the one works really well, and it puts your fingers in the instruments, you know, like it's just it's nice. It's really designed to be a good opening for a concert, I think.
Wonderful. Yeah, it's I think it will be probably the first time I've heard it as an opening for a concert. So yeah, it'll be really interesting to hear how it flows into your next piece, which is also a standard in the repertoire by Tonsman.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, a little bit less of an iconic piece of the classical guitar repertoire, but one of the classics for sure. A piece by Tonsman. So yes, those 2 pieces flow really well together, actually. The first one is in E minor, second one is in B minor, so you're very, very close. And you've got the same kind of spirit, I guess, and same tuning, so that's a plus as well. And that piece is really a gorgeous piece that I just learned recently, a couple months ago. And I don't know really why I chose to learn the piece. I think I had the score open, you know, like I read a lot of music, and I just I played through the theme, and obviously I've known the piece for a long time, but never played it. So I played it, and it's just, oh, because this is really nice. And first variation, second variation, and as you go, you kind of learn the piece, you know, like, and it just happens. So I kind of learned it that way, I guess, without really choosing, but I just, you know, ended up playing the piece, and I think it's a really gorgeous piece of our repertoire. It's beautiful. The theme is the Prelude by Scriabin, Opus 16, in E flat minor. So, or in B minor on the guitar, it's way easier to play. And then he's putting a few variations after this. I think the Prelude by Scriabin is so gorgeous. There's enough music for, you know, more than this 45 seconds it lasts or something like this. So I think Tonsman was inspired by this and just wanted to make it a longer piece, I guess. So it's a prelude. We have a set of variations, a very short fugue at the end, more like a fugato. It's not a real fugue, and the return of the theme after a big climax of tension. We get back to the opening, which is a very, very calm, serene, and almost sad opening.
Well, it's such a beautiful piece. I really love that piece.
Yeah.
So, and then following this, we get to hear a piece written by you.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes. So that I've been writing music since I was 16, something like this. So I was very young when I started writing, but never for solo classical guitar. Weirdly.
And can you talk about the meanings of the titles of the two pieces?
Yes, the titles. So that's Tubéreuse, I think, the first one, and Irrévérente is the second one. Tubéreuse is a flower, and it's used in perfumes a lot. And Irrévérente is another. It's the name of a perfume, Histoire du Parfum. It's a very small perfume shop in Paris. And Alexandra likes to wear this perfume. And my wife Alexandra. And I don't know, just the smells of it. I guess it's good inspiration. I guess I don't know.
Sure. Well, this is putting a whole different spin on this now than I.
Oh yeah, really? Okay.
So yeah, wonderful, wonderful. So okay, and then and then we're ending with a piece from jazz repertoire. We're kind of going in a totally different direction.
Tigran Amasayan, he's a jazz pianist. Is one of the greatest jazz pianists today, I think. He's a really good composer as well. So he writes a ton of music. And this one was written a few years back. I think it's on one of his albums. And he also has a YouTube video of a performance of that piece. And my transcription is from the YouTube video. It's a really awesome piece on the piano, and I don't know why it. One night I had okay, I'm gonna try this on the guitar, and because just the opening is like a bass, basically you just keep the bass and you play a melody on top, like. So it's in G minor, I believe, on the piano. I don't remember actually, but I put it in D minor. I had to transpose. And then the opening worked really well. And then there was all like those chords where, okay, you have to stretch a little bit, but they kind of fit pretty well. And then I just kept going. There's a middle part that's a lot more quick, let's say, like pretty intense with like a very complex rhythms. But that there's an ostinato in the bass that always keeps, always stays. And then I just started going through it, and I went, okay, this works too. And next measure, this works as well. So I just kind of went through the piece, and it actually works really well on the guitar. So I had to, adapt a few things of octave here and there, but I think it's mostly the same. I think it works well on the guitar.
Well, thank you, Thomas. Thank you so much.
Risa. Thank you.
Thanks. Hello, my name is Risa Carlson, and I am the pre-concert lecturer for the Baltimore Classical Guitar Society. Ron, I'd love to start with you. Can you tell us about this quartet that you've written?
Sure. Um, about a year ago, I was approached a number of conversations between the Guitar Society and William Chandler of Musica Canis Avum about writing a piece for the Atlantic Guitar Quartet that would be the last work on this last concert of the season. And one of the first things that I had two thoughts. One was I didn't want to write a piece about the pandemic. I didn't want it to be a pandemic influenced piece, which is exactly what it turned into. Because one of the first things that happened was as we started talking about it, thinking back, this is almost a year ago, we had no idea if live concerts would be a thing yet, if this would be something that would be possible. And one of the ideas that was floated was that maybe in a year's time, we could have a live concert, or at least the performers could be in the same space with one another, but they might have to be physically really separated. So the first thing that came to me was the idea that the quartet might be sitting in 4 different locations on the stage. Instead of that little, U shape that we traditionally have with a quartet, that they might be really spaced far apart. So you can see that's sort of where the working title came from. And it's also sort of a reference to the idea that when you're in an ensemble, you do so much of your work on your own, and then you come together for these moments of rehearsal, and then those wonderful moments of performance. So you are both together and apart simultaneously. And this is sort of what got the first movement generated. The title is A Song from the Corners, and it gradually unfolds slowly in a way that the melody, the main sort of thematic material, is being played piece by piece from the various 4 guitars. It's not simply one part that's carrying it. And so it's slightly mosaic-like in a way. And the corners part, we refer to the 4 points of the compass, or the 4 corners of the world, which is strange given that the world is round. But with that part aside, that was the generation, the genesis for that first movement. Continuing with the idea of things being separated, or things not necessarily being together physically in the same space. The second movement, I Saw You Dancing in the Snowfall, But You Could Not See Me, comes from a novel by a novelist named Rachel Joyce. And, excuse me, at one point in this novel, the main character is looking out a window at the factory where she works to this man that she's in love with, but he doesn't know this. And he's down on the ground floor, he's taking out the trash or something, and it's snowing, and he just begins dancing by himself. No one can see him, or at least he thinks no one can see him. And there she is, 2 or 3 floors above, observing him from a distance. And I'm not exactly sure why that came to me when it did, but it struck me as a metaphor for this is how we've lived this past year. We've been watching things out our windows. We've been watching things on Zoom. We've been watching things and interacting with them, but not in the same space. So you can hear it's wintertime. There's kind of a suggestion of snowfall. There's a dance-like feel to it, but it's off because the snow is falling in groups of 4 and the dance is in 3. So everything's not quite right. It gets a little bit more exotic sounding. There's kind of a Christmas carol chorale off in the distance. And then the dance returns, but this time there are two dancers, but they don't line up. They're always a beat apart, or they're in the wrong octave. It's as though she's mirroring the dance from her window, but they're not going to be quite in sync. So the last movement, after JSB, I wanted something to feel exuberant or triumphant. I was hoping that this would be a concert that would be live, and so the last movement could be kind of a return to the way things had been. And then if it wasn't going to be that way, that at least it could point in that direction. And so the title, After JSB, it means after Johann Sebastian Bach. And the word after is used in sort of a double sense, in that we use the term after when we're sort of paying homage to another composer, but using some of that composer's language. The Nocturnal by Benjamin Britten, I think the full title is Nocturnal after John Dowland, because it utilizes the music of Dowland. And so in this case, the generating material is the prelude to the sixth cello suite. So there are little motives from that movement that sort of run throughout. So if you know that piece, you'll recognize it, but you don't need to know that piece. I'm hoping that the movement stands on its own, whether you understand the references or not. It was really the generating material. And then, of course, the other reference, the other term after Johann Sebastian Bach, I mean, there's Bach, and then there's everyone who comes after. In other words, all of us who write music, all of us who play music, we all sort of walk in his footsteps and his shadow.
Well, Ron, even though we aren't able to be all together and hear this live in person, I'm sure this will still feel like a wonderful celebration.
Yeah, that's my hope as well.
So I'd love to turn to the quartet. Can you tell me about your experience in learning this piece and working with Ron on perfecting all the little parts of it?
So I can maybe start us off. I will say when we first got the piece and reading your writing on it, Ron, and the concept behind the first movement, after being cooped up alone for a year, it was simultaneously very touching, but also it was almost like an exhale, or like, thank God we get to play together again. Thank God we get to work on this music together again. But also it was heartbreaking because we were working on this by ourselves in our own corners of the world. And we had to develop a whole other rehearsal technique virtually to even put this piece together. So the poignancy that you're talking about in your piece, just on initially getting it, besides like, oh, this is great content, this is great music, was just the concept behind it was very, very striking.
I'll add too, what was really interesting and kind of unanticipated was the extra layer of complexity in even kind of being able to come together, at this time. I mean, it's like, well, who's gotten a vaccine? It's not just, our busy professional lives and our busy family lives, and when can we kind of, get away to spend enough time together, but it's also like, who's gotten a vaccine? Is there a place that's large enough for us to rehearse? When can we get in there? I mean, it's all of this other, it was really kind of like, a space launch or something to get everything together. And but it was really quite a joy after kind of spending so much time behind the computer, doing music, to be able to be in person, with my friends here, to be able to do it. It was really great. So we're really happy for this opportunity to bring Ron's music.
So in addition to Ron's piece, you're also playing several pieces by the wonderful Celso Machado. Could you talk about the different pieces you'll be playing and kind of give us an idea of what we'll be hearing?
Yeah, sure. So Celso Machado is a Brazilian composer, also still living. One thing we haven't mentioned, for those who don't know, we as a quartet, we focus specifically on the music of living composers. Celso Machado, especially this set of pieces, it's different than Ron's music in the sense that it is just wholeheartedly about kind of the folk musics of Brazil, right? It has it's infused with this sense of popular culture in Brazil. And the full title, Danças Populares Brasileiras. It means popular Brazilian dances, and by popular, what they really mean is folk.
Fantastic. I have another question, completely unrelated. So you are the Atlantic Guitar Quartet, but you started out in Baltimore, all four of you, correct? And now you are spaced out across the Atlantic seaboards. So
Right.
could you talk a little bit about how you got started, how you decided to form a quartet, and kind of the genesis of where the Atlantic Guitar Quartet came from?
I could chime in on that. It started, back in probably 2009, if I'm correct. But before that, Zoe and I had been in a different guitar quartet when we were both grad students at Peabody. And just by happenstance, that quartet had dissolved because, people move on and go different ways, as a lot of chamber groups work. And Zoe and I had just communicated that, we really loved working with each other. Zoe and I especially really had a great, musical bond. And we had expressed like we should really, make another quartet. So through talking to, asking our professors and mentors and other people around if there was any people that were interested, we came across John, and he immediately, upon meeting him, I had never even met Jonathan before, but upon meeting him, it was definitely apparent that we had a good communication, both professionally, musically, and personally, which is a very important thing in any chamber ensemble that is going to expect to spend hours in a rehearsal room. You have to really get along personally as well, as much. It's just as important as the professional and being on the same page musically. So me, Zoe, and John had started the quartet, and it was always a hard press to find that fourth member. It was trying to find that last Beatle. And we had gone through a few other members in the meantime, and then just by they happened to couldn't do it, couldn't commit long term, happened to move away. And a few years ago, probably I would say about 6 years ago, we had reached out to Mark because we knew of his musical prowess at Peabody in his grad studies. He was definitely someone that was like, wow, he's really good. And we had reached out to him, but at the time he was busy. He had other projects, and being a responsible person, he just like, listen, I'd love to, but at the time I couldn't. So we circled back and a few years later, and he was willing to jump in. And when he joined the quartet, it was just like, oh, this is it. This is a great gel. We've really started to gel together.
Well, I would like to thank all of you for joining me today. This was such a fascinating conversation, and I can't wait to hear this performance. Ron, your piece sounds just really, really beautiful. I can't wait to hear it.
Me too.
Thank you, Risa. Thank you so much for having us. Thank you again, Ron, for all your contributions, now and until now.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ron. We really enjoyed recording it.
Welcome, and it's my pleasure. Really, I'm really looking forward to this.